Hey guys, so I'm recording this as a voiceover today because I forgot to put my microphone on, and so this tutorial didn't record any sound. So let's pretend like my words are matching my mouth. Um, and we'll all just go with it. So I'm going to talk about how you can fix sticky resin. So this is something that I get asked all the time. People message me on my Facebook page or on my Instagram all the time asking what they've done wrong. And there's basically three things, and these are the most common things that cause your resin to stay sticky. So where it hasn't fully cured, even though you've given it the 24 hours to 48 hours, and it's still got that tackiness to it. So there are three ways, and the first way is if you're using your resin and you haven't measured it out accurately. So if you're using a 1-to-1 ratio and you haven't measured out your 1-to-1 accurately, or if you're using a 2-to-1 ratio, that can cause your resin to never fully cure. So where it will semi-set but never really cure, so it won't still be liquid, but it will always have that tackiness to it. So that's one of the most common ways. The second most common way for your resin not to cure is you didn't mix it for long enough. So nearly every resin manufacturer has a resin guideline for how long you need to mix your resin for, and normally it's around 3 to 5 minutes. It does depend on how much resin you're mixing at the one time, because obviously if you're mixing quite a lot, you probably need to mix it for a bit longer. So because you haven't mixed your resin properly, you've got parts of A and parts of B, so your resin and your hardener, that didn't combine thoroughly, and so therefore half your resin will set, and those parts where the A and the B just didn't mix will never ever set. So the third most common way is you've added too much of something and it's thrown out the chemical reaction. So if you are using a 1-to-1 ratio resin, you can't add too much of a third party in, because then it throws off that ratio, and therefore you have it where your resin sets too fast, like whether it would set while you're pouring it, or whether it keeps sticky and won't ever fully cure. So there is a really simple way you can fix this, and those are the three most common ways that you will have sticky resin. And it's annoying, but there is a super simple way to fix it. So depending on how long you've left your board, and I wish I could say that I did this on purpose so I could film this video, but I didn't. I must have done one of those three mistakes when I was doing this. So depending on how long you've left your board for, depends on whether you need to give it an alcohol spray. If you've left it for a little bit and there's some dust or dirt in it because you didn't cover it, you then need to just give it a bit of alcohol spray, because when you do pour your new top coat on, you're going to have issues with that sort of dirt getting stuck into your resin. So you can just give it a quick spritz of alcohol and just get any sort of dirt or germs off it, so that way it doesn't affect the second layer. Then what you're going to need to do is mix up a brand new batch of resin. So I'm just using a clear coat because I really do like how this artwork turned out. And if you want to see how this artwork turned out, I do have a tutorial on how I made it, which I will add a link to. So you've mixed up your resin. You need to make sure, one, that you have done it correctly if that was the issue you had last time. So just make sure you really do take care with measuring out your ratio correctly, and also making sure that you really do mix it well. Then once you've got your resin mixed up, you can just pour it over your board and just make sure that you've got enough to fully cover it, and it should do its own thing. I'm just helping it along with my stirrer, which is an acrylic stirrer, which I would highly recommend getting one if you are getting into resin art, because they are very, very handy, and you just wipe them off and keep reusing them, so they're also environmentally friendly. So I'm just going to cover my board, making sure that it's fully covered and that my board is nice and even, so that way I'll get an even porridge of my resin. And that is literally how easy it is to do this. You've just got to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes again, and make sure you do measure out your resin ratio correctly and mix it for long enough. And because we're not putting pigment in it, we don't need to worry about that third party throwing off the resin reacting and affecting the ratio. So that's all you have to do. And then I'm just going to give it a torch to get rid of any micro bubbles, because you will really see those micro bubbles popping up because it is just a clear coat. So make sure you do give it a really good torching, because you don't have that pigment hiding those little bubbles anymore. So that's just one thing you do need to be careful when you do your second coat, is to make sure that you do get all of those little bubbles out, because otherwise they'll be really obvious when you do, if you do leave them in. And then also make sure you cover all your sides fully, because you don't want to be left with a really good top coat and then all the sides to your board are still sticky. So just make sure you do go around with your hands and get everywhere that there is that sticky resin, even underneath, because as you can see here, I've got drips and I'm going to have to sand those drips back once this resin sets. But if that's still that sticky resin underneath, it's going to muck up my sander. So just make sure you do get every little area with your resin, so that way you've got no issues down the track. So I hope this video answered your question on how to fix sticky resin and the 3 ways that cause sticky resin. I get asked this question all the time, so it was actually probably a blessing in disguise that I did do this mistake, so I could film this tutorial for anyone. And if you have any ideas on what you want to see next, please leave it down in the comment box below. It's always helpful getting your feedback. And if you're new to my channel, please do subscribe and hit that notification bell, as it really does help me out. And if you like this video, please do give it a big thumbs up, as it lets YouTube know to show this to more people. Thank you guys so much for watching.